I have been told many times by a lot of people in the zombies community that my opinions on this franchise sometimes are very unpopular, and I'm totally okay with being in the minority of an opinion for something, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to just share a bunch of these opinions and let you guys know like the long list of unpopular hot takes I have. First of all, I wanted to get the overrated and underrated maps and games out of the way because I don't want to have this list just full of talking about like which maps I think are actually good when a lot of people don't like them and vice versa. So let's just get this out of the way. We have 4 for each of these categories. First of all, let's talk about the most overrated zombies games. Now, I do not hate these zombies games. I just think they're rated a lot higher than they deserve by the majority of the zombies community. This is going to be World at War, which, yes, I know that like, freaks people out when they hear it because it's the first zombies. How can you possibly call the first zombies overrated? But I mean, it's been 16 years, right? Like, I feel like this mode got kind of stale even once like Black Ops 2 hit. Once we started seeing masterpieces like Mob of the Dead, Buried, and Origins all in one game, it was kind of hard to go back to this and really appreciate it as much. I respect it for being the first zombies game. I mean, without this, we wouldn't have gotten everything, going forward, but in and of itself, it's just a very bare bones experience, and I do think high rounds on it can be kind of fun, but I really can't see myself playing it much anymore. I probably haven't played much of it in the past, honestly, 10 years. Like, it's been a while since I've really put a lot of time into World at War Zombies, and the maps in World at War are all playable in Black Ops 1 and in Black Ops 3. Now, the World at War versions, I think most of them are better in World at War just because of that classic feel, but still, I mean, you really could go your whole life without playing World at War, and you could still get these experiences in other zombies games. Black Ops 1 kind of sits in the same boat for me where I do really enjoy it, I appreciate it, all that stuff, but it also just doesn't really have as much flavor and pizzazz as some later zombies titles. I think there's quite a few great maps here. I love Call of the Dead especially, it's one of my favorite maps ever. But then there's some other maps in there that I just don't really care to play much anymore. This was also infamous for having some of the worst boss zombies in zombies history. I mean, you have stuff like the astronauts from Moon, the space monkeys on Ascension. They're just not fun to go up against and kind of almost unfair in a sense. I'm glad this was the first game to have Easter eggs because obviously Easter eggs become a really major part in Call of Duty Zombies later on. But in this game, the Easter eggs weren't really that special beyond having some really cool story information given to the player. But the actual gameplay elements of the Easter egg were not that fun. A lot of it was full of RNG and stuff like that just doesn't really work for me, especially nowadays. I mean, maybe back when it was, the newest COD, I kind of really enjoyed it a lot more, but once we started getting better maps, it's just really hard to go back to this and really enjoy it. Cold War Zombies is also one that I think is quite overrated, especially recently. A lot of people have been looking very fondly on Cold War Zombies, and I've even made a few videos recently talking about a lot of issues I had, specifically with Black Ops Cold War Zombies. And although I had fun with it, and I definitely think it was an enjoyable experience, I just think it lacked depth. That was the biggest problem I had with it. I mean, if you go look at every zombies experience from World at War up to Black Ops 4, I do believe they started getting more and more in depth as they went along. Not saying they got better as they went along, but they were certainly getting more deep. There was more to the mode. And then Cold War felt like it stripped a lot of that down. It became very basic. And I know some people like that. They like the more basic bare bones feel of it. And don't get me wrong, going for camos and such in this game, it was fun, but that's really all this game had to offer. It had a camo grind there. You grinded for the Ethereum Crystal upgrades, which didn't really take that long to be honest. The Easter eggs were by far some of the easiest Easter eggs in zombies history, probably the easiest Easter eggs ever, which I do take as a bad thing, especially because there was just no depth to them. They lacked depth, and that to me is really important, so I just didn't really enjoy Cold War Zombies that much. And it lacked personality, which was probably one of the worst things about it. And lastly, for the overrated Call of Duty Zombies games, I've got Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, and this is starting to change a little bit because I think when the game first came out, there was a lot of positive reception, but now I'm starting to see that kind of linger off a little bit, and I don't really hear people talking about the mode too much anymore, and when I do hear people talking about it, it's a lot of negatives. So I think the kind of honeymoon phase of this is starting to wear off. But even with that being said, I still think how people rate it now is still a lot higher than I believe the mode deserves. Now, am I a little biased because I just don't really enjoy the open world feel compared to round-based? Yeah, of course. I much prefer round-based zombies. That's just who I am. I think the more condensed nature of that is just a lot more enjoyable. And this, open world experience revolves a lot around just running around the map. And I just don't enjoy that as much. So immediately, it's just not a mode that I'm that interested in, even just from the beginning. Even just knowing it was just going to be open world, that was enough for me to be a little bit disinterested in it. But even within the gameplay itself, just basing it on what it is trying to be, I don't think it succeeds fully in that. A lot of the grinds are based on RNG, and not fun RNG, may I add. It's not, your typical hitting the mystery box a bunch of times to get a wonder weapon RNG. It's like full on grinding schematics and not being able to achieve them because the actual drop rate for them is extremely low. And I know that's very subjective because I'm just speaking from my own experience. I've gotten, not many schematics, even though I've grinded contracts in tier 2 and 3 zones quite a bit, but I just really haven't gotten the ones that I've wanted because they just don't appear enough. And I know there's some players out there who got them like right away. So it just really depends on your luck, of course. But even just beyond that, like the gameplay itself just is quite repetitive for me. I know there's quite a few things you're able to do on the map, but a lot of the things just is not really worth doing. Like for the contracts, for example, there's 8 different contracts that are currently there. Majority of them are worthless. You might as well not even bother doing them because they don't give you better rewards than the other ones. So you might as well just keep doing the ones that are quicker and easier, and then you're good to go. Just keep grinding those. And then of course the act missions, I thought the actual story missions were somewhat fun, but the missions before that, all the other missions you had to do, a lot of them were filler. Like there was one that literally had you going around the map filling up your vehicle at different gas stations. That is a really boring mission to force the player to do before they can actually do the story mission. I know that was a way for them to just pad out the time of you playing the game because they want people to play the game as much as humanly possible, and if that means giving us really boring filler grinds, they will do that, and I just did not find those to be that fun. I think the mode certainly has promise if they add future maps and maybe have this be like a free-to-play experience going forward, but just as a replacement for round-based, I don't think it works, and I really don't want to see a zombies game where this is the only mode we have ever again. And now for the most underrated Call of Duty Zombies games, I've got Infinite Warfare, which this one, it blows my mind so many people won't even bother trying it because it is such a great zombies experience. It's honestly been going up and up my list over time. It used to be like, oh, I'm a number 5 favorite zombies mode maybe, then it went to number 4, number 3, and honestly today, I kind of want to consider it my second favorite zombies mode of all time because that is how much fun I have on Infinite Warfare. So of course, Zombies in Spaceland is a masterpiece. It is one of the best maps of all time. I would argue the best map of all time. I think it has the most amount of content in terms of just like things to do on the map. And a lot of the things aren't too complicated either. So if you're one of those people who really hate complicated zombies maps, it's really not that complicated. Most of the stuff you can do relatively easily. They're just fun to mess with. There's a lot of things to mess with on the map. There's the rides, there's the ticket system, there's the arcane cores, there's the actual Easter egg, there's the Ghosts and Skulls Easter egg. And then when you get Director's Cut, you just play the map with Director's Cut. You can get the Space Pistol Wonder Weapons right out of the box. And there's just so many fun things to mess around with. The music that's played through the map the entire time is fantastic. And even just Spaceland alone makes this a great game, but I would argue that some of the other maps in the game are great as well. Rave in the Redwoods is pretty close to being as good as Spaceland. I know a lot of people love to say that Spaceland is the only good map in that game, but I gotta tell you, I don't think they played enough Rave in the Redwoods because Rave in the Redwoods is solid. It has those really fun 4 crossbows that you can upgrade, and I think they're not as cool as like the Dreisendrach bows, obviously, but they're still pretty fun themselves. The map itself has a really cool layout to it. I love the little rave area, especially because you can just jam out to the music that's playing in it, have a good time. There's a lot of fun traps, just like there are in Spaceland. The Easter egg is relatively simple, but it's kind of fun to do with a really cool boss fight. It's also got a Ghosts and Skulls quest as well, so there's a lot of fun to have. And Shall and Shuffle, I think, is also really great. There's a lot of things to do on Shall and Shuffle, especially with the katana. Really great wonder weapon. And then you go to Attack of the Radioactive Thing, which I think is just not as good as those other maps, but still has some promise to it. Beast from Beyond is the only map in this game that I think is genuinely not a good map. But even then, there are some cool aspects to it, like the Mephistopheles boss fight that you get after doing the Super Easter egg. So even though it's not really a good map, there are still some positives to it that I think at least deserve mentioning in some way. But the game itself, it has a lot of things to it. I mean, you have all the different variants that you can grind for. You can grind the supply drops in the game and get the salvage for the variants. And the variants you can actually use in zombies and do specific unique things in zombies that they don't do in multiplayer, which is really damn cool. There's also, of course, the characters, celebrity characters that you can actually get after doing Easter eggs, and you can play as them. And then, of course, there's a Director's Cut Super Easter egg. So such a great game, very underrated. I would also have to say Call of Duty World War II deserves to be called underrated. Now, I wouldn't call it like an amazing zombies experience because I do think there are some problems with the mechanics and just the way the zombie AI is, but I think there's actually a lot of cool things to this mode as well. There's a lot of great Easter egg steps here, but there's also a lot of bad ones, which kind of brings the mode down a little bit. But some of the puzzles are actually really interesting, really intricate, really complex, which I personally like. I know, like I said, a lot of people don't like that, but I think there is some fun to be had with the complexity with these Easter eggs. The Final Reich especially is a fantastic map, one of the best maps we've ever had in zombies. The actual horror aspects of this mode are frightening. Like, there's some really gory, cool stuff within this mode. If you just play through the Easter eggs, you will see it. It is awesome. The actual boss designs are incredible, and there's actually a lot of fun survival maps that they threw in here as well. They're just extra maps. I didn't like the whole Tortured Path mode and how that replaced the DLC map, but the survival versions of those maps can be fun to mess around with every now and then, and Gross House is probably the best survival map to ever exist in zombies. So you got to give World War II at least a little credit. There's also a lot of stuff to grind for in the game as well, and they're fun grinds. I will say I think a lot of people dislike this game mainly because it's very difficult, and I know no one wants to admit that because they always want to act like they're holier than thou and they can't possibly be bad at zombies, but trust me, I feel like a lot of the most frustrating moments you'll have in this game comes from just the fact that it's not that easy. It's actually one of the harder zombies experiences out there when it comes to even just high rounding or the Easter eggs, and I think that's something that a lot of people just don't like. Black Ops 4 is definitely also underrated, and this one, it kind of speaks for itself because yes, there's a lot of hate for Black Ops 4 Zombies. A lot of people have actually played it. I mean, the other two modes that we talked about here are less popular in general, so there's less players to actually even rate the mode in the first place. A lot of the people who say Infinite Warfare World War II Zombies are bad probably haven't even tried it, if we're being completely honest, but Black Ops 4 at least has had more people try it out, so more people have given their opinions on it, and honestly, I agree with a lot of the hate that this game has. Like, for example, the perk system, I don't like the perk system. The point system, I don't like the point system. The HUD, I don't like the HUD. Like, there's a lot of genuine complaints there that I agree with, but I think the maps are just really fun, and there's a lot of great Easter eggs here. There's a lot of great side quests. There's a lot of fun boss fights. The actual art style, especially of the Chaos maps, is just some of the best stuff we've ever seen in zombies. So regardless of a couple mechanical issues with the game, I don't really care because it is still a really damn good experience and has some of the best maps we've ever seen in zombies. So I can forgive it for having some flaws there. If they fixed those flaws and they had it be more similar to the Black Ops 3's perk system and point system, it would probably be the best zombies of all time. And lastly, I'm going to go with Vanguard. Now hear me out before you freak out. I do not think Vanguard is a good zombies mode. Remember, calling something underrated does not mean you're calling it good. Calling something overrated does not mean you're calling it bad. I just think this mode is a tiny bit better than what people give it credit for. People say it's like the worst thing Call of Duty has ever done. They say it's absolute trash, absolute garbage, and I just don't think it's that bad. I just think it's pretty meh. Like, the first two maps, Duran Fong and Terra Maldicta, are trash. Yes, I would agree with you there. That is some of the worst stuff Call of Duty has ever done. But Shinonuma Reborn and the Archon, they're not awful. Like, I enjoy playing them. They're probably the same quality as the Cold War round-based maps, if we're going to be completely honest here. Like, I don't see that big of a difference between the mechanics in this game to Cold War. There's a couple differences, obviously, but for the most part, it has the same, like, feel that this, new generation of zombies has had, which I haven't really liked that feel, but it really does have the same feel. So if you're going to call Cold War Zombies the best thing ever, and you're going to say Vanguard's the worst, I just don't think these maps are that different. I know a lot of people didn't even try out those maps because they tried Duran Fong, hated it, then never tried anything else in the game, which is fair. If you want to do that, that's fine. But genuinely speaking, I think Shinonuma and the Archon, they're not awful. They're just not good either. They're just there. Their experiences, the Easter eggs are fine. I don't really mind them. They're not like, the Black Ops 3 Easter eggs or anything like that. But compared to Cold War, again, they're just like Cold War to me. They're really no different. So it's hard for me to say this game's that horrible. Therefore, I'm going to call it underrated. Now let's get into the most overrated maps, not in any particular order. I wasn't going in any particular order with those other maps either. So first of all, Kino der Toten. I think this one is very obvious. A lot of people are kind of agreeing with me nowadays, so I think eventually this is not even going to be considered overrated anymore because most people are starting to realize that this map is not that special. But honestly, the reason we all loved it back in the day is because it was the launch map on Black Ops 1. And so let's say you never even played World at War. and this was all you had, like, of course, it's your first zombies experience. You're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a blast. It wasn't for me. I actually did start playing zombies back in World at War in 2008, so this actually wasn't my first zombies experience, but it still felt like a very fresh thing when it came out. But it really wasn't that innovative when you really think about it. Like, did it really add anything that interesting? It added some new bosses and the Thunder Gun, and that's really it. It does feel like another version of Duriz, and I would say most of the other Black Ops 1 maps are just a lot better. It doesn't have an Easter egg, doesn't have any side quests. It's just a very plain map. It doesn't look that interesting. I don't think the layout is anything too interesting either. So just over time, it's just started to become a more and more overrated map. Like, if you want to say it's a fine map, sure, go for it. But calling it one of the best maps ever, to me, it just tells me that you probably only care about the like survival aspect of zombies, and you can give less of a shit about any Easter egg related thing, which is totally fine if that's how you feel. But even then, there's a lot other maps in Call of Duty Zombies that I would say do the survival aspect a lot better. Next up, I gotta say Moon. A lot of people love Moon. I've never understood it though. Moon is one of the most annoying maps to play in my opinion, and I do think it has a level of difficulty to it that I do think is good. I like having a challenge there, but it's never been like a fun challenge to me. It's always been just kind of like, I just don't feel like playing this. You know, when you have the excavators coming down, the low gravity in general just doesn't really feel very great. Not being able to hear when zombies are behind you isn't very fun either. And I don't necessarily think the Easter eggs that good either. I think the story revolving around the Easter eggs amazing, but the actual gameplay of the Easter egg is pretty terrible. It's got a lot of RNG. Like, there's one point where you have to go between getting the Gersh device, then you have to switch it out for the QEDs, then you have to go back to the Gersh device. Like, I don't want to keep doing that. And you also have to get the wave gun. So those are like 4 different items you have to keep getting out of the box. And that just, it's really frustrating because there's no direct side quest to earning these items like they do in the later Zombies games. So it's just, in my opinion, not a very fun map. I think it's better on Black Ops 3, but if we're talking just the Black Ops 1 version, definitely overrated. D Machine is also very overrated. I see a lot of people calling D Machine like the next Kino der Toten, which, I mean, sure, it probably is to me because it's also another map that's very bare bones, very simplistic, and a lot of people love it. And it's also a lot of people's first map ever. A lot of people started playing zombies for the first time within Black Ops Cold War. And again, if it's your first map and you have some sort of love, you know, for it, that's fine. But for me, I think it is incredibly overrated. I think it's a very boring map. Just like most of the Cold War maps, if we're going to be honest. I think some of the camo grinding on it was fun, but the problem is I could have done that on literally any map. Like, it didn't have to be D Machine. You could do the camo grinding on any other map, experience, whatever, within Cold War. It doesn't have to be D Machine. If there's nothing special about D Machine, I can't really call it a great map. I just can't. Sure, the die shockwaves are kind of cool, but I would say they're probably the least interesting, or at least one of the least interesting out of the 4 elemental, you know, variant wonder weapons that we've ever seen in COD Zombies history. So it's just not an interesting map to me. I'm sorry, I just don't like it. I never really did. And lastly, I'm just gonna go with Operation Deadbolt, even though I don't really know if you can consider this a map, but whatever. I'm just gonna go with it. The, you know, Urzikstan experience in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. I've already talked about why I don't really like Modern Warfare 3 Zombies all that much, so there you go. Now on to the most underrated maps. I think Shaolin Shuffle is definitely a contender for one of the most underrated maps, in my opinion. There's so many fun things to do on this map. It's kind of like Spaceland in that sense. There's just so many little things to mess around with. The katana especially is really cool. I love the 4 different chi abilities you get too. The Easter egg, although insanely complicated, I think is kind of fun. I just think a couple of the steps should have been tweaked a little bit to make it actually doable solo, because especially doing the Morse code stuff, like, you really can't do that with a zombie hitting you. So why not just let us do it without zombies hitting you? It would be a lot better if that was the case. I think the Easter egg actually has some fun elements to it. The ninja zombies definitely do suck. I will agree with people there, but they honestly don't suck until you get to like round 40 and onward. Before that, they're really not that hard to deal with. Just get a decent weapon, get the katana, get the upgraded pistols. It's really not that bad to deal with. It's just once you start getting to those really high rounds, then okay, they start becoming a bigger problem and quite annoying as one of the worst boss zombies in Zombies history. I will agree with people there, but that does not make the map bad though. The Frozen Dawn is a map a lot of people didn't even bother trying, because by the time this map came out, people were done with the World War II Zombies DLC season. And honestly, like, I really disliked the Tortured Path at first, and then I started to kind of enjoy the survival versions of them, and I can completely understand why people don't like the Darkest Shore. I don't like it either. The Shadow Throne has some positive elements to it, so I don't think it was, you know, deserving of being called that bad. But the Frozen Dawn, when this released, like no one was talking about it, but it's genuinely a pretty decent map. And it took me some time to actually try it out a bit and do the Easter egg, because when it first came out, I feel like a lot of people were so in the Black Ops 4 hype train that they just didn't even want to give this map a chance. And I was one of those people. Didn't really care for it at first too much. But when I did the Easter egg, I actually had a lot of fun on it. I think there's a lot of cool puzzles to it. I think it's got a really cool boss fight. I think the wonder weapons are pretty fun to use. The map layout is really good. The new boss zombie, the Corpse Eater, is pretty awesome as well. There's a lot of solid things about this map. It's not a frustrating map to play on. I feel like some of the other World War II maps, like the Darkest Shore, can be kind of frustrating, but this one, I never really felt that. I felt like it was actually a pretty fair map, but it was really fun as well, and it did have a challenge to it. Like I said, World War II zombies can be challenging, but in a good way, in a way that actually made sense. Voyage of Despair deserves to be called underrated solely for its atmosphere. Like, I think the gameplay is fine. I don't really think it's that bad. I think a lot of people over-exaggerate, but the atmosphere alone, the detail, the amount of work Treyarch put into this map and how it looks just deserves to be recognized at least a little bit. It is one of the best looking maps of all time. The soundtrack is fantastic. It feels so dark and depressing, but I think that's obviously fitting for the Titanic. And the gameplay, I kind of enjoy. I think the Kraken is decent. It's not like the best wonder weapon ever, but it's fun at least, you know, at least in the early rounds. The Easter egg is okay. I don't think it's great, but I think it's definitely not bad. I think it's quite easy for the most part. A lot of people say it's like one of the hardest Easter eggs ever. I don't understand that. It's not that hard. The boss fight's quite hard, sure, but when you get before that, most of it's fine. It's just a little hard for maybe the first time you're doing it, but once you do it like 2 or 3 times, you get the groove on, you're gonna be just fine. It's not gonna be that bad. It's not like other Easter eggs that even on your 20th time doing it, it's gonna be tricky. No, this one is one that you do it enough, you'll learn it, you'll be fine at it. So I've always thought it was a fine map. I don't think it's one of the better maps in Black Ops 4, but it's totally okay. And lastly, I'm going to go with Alpha Omega, and this is a map that honestly, I don't understand most of the hate for it, especially because when the map first came out, people loved it. Like, I was there. I remember people thinking this was a much better map than most of what was in Black Ops 4. People was like, oh my god, Ether is revived. Everyone loved it. They loved the Easter egg, and then out of nowhere, I don't know when it happened. It might have been when TOG came out. It might have been later on. I have no idea. But people started hating Alpha Omega, and now it's considered one of the worst maps by the community. And I don't get it. I think it's a very fun map. I think it has a lot of style to it, even though it's, reusing assets from Nuketown, even within Blackout itself. It feels very original, even with that being said. Somehow, I think a lot of the, the music really makes that feel that way. The Ray Gun Mark II variants are quite fun to get and quite fun to use. The Easter egg is pretty good as well. I think the only bad thing about this map really is the fact that zombies can turn off the generators, and they honestly do it even more frequently than they do on Origins. So I can understand why people don't like high rounds on this map because of that. But if you're not doing high rounds, you're just playing for the Easter egg, then honestly, I think this is a really solid map. Now let's just get into some more general hot takes about Call of Duty Zombies, with the first one being that complexity is good in zombies. This is probably one of my most unpopular opinions out there, because I feel like every time I talk about this, everyone's like, no, I want the most simplistic zombies experience possible. I like when it's bare bones. I don't want to have to do anything. Everyone's always saying, oh, the Pack-a-Punch should take 2 seconds. I should be able to get all my stuff within like 10 minutes of playing. And I just don't understand all of that. I think more complexity just creates a more in-depth experience, which can make it more replayable. Now, complexity doesn't necessarily mean inaccessible, because every time someone hears complex, they think it's going to be inaccessible. No, I do think there should be reasonable paths to getting what you need within the mode, but that only really applies to like the basic things, in my opinion. I think when it comes to Easter eggs, side quests, a bunch of other extra things, those should be complex, because the more complex it is, the more layers to it, the more depth it has, which just makes it more replayable. To me, it's such a good feeling that there are still some things in zombies I have yet to do. I am not the type of person who's like a completionist. I need to do literally everything the game has to offer within like the first month it comes out. And I feel like those people are the ones who want it to be the least amount of complex as possible, because they want to be able to 100% the game right away. Like, they want to do that as soon as possible. I don't need to do that. I like taking my time with things. And I like the fact that there are still stuff within Infinite Warfare, within Black Ops 4, within Black Ops 3, that I have still yet to do. I have never gotten the Margwa helmet on Shadows of Evil, for example. Like, it's such a random thing. I've just never done it. I've never done all the Ghosts and Skulls quests in Infinite Warfare. I would love to. When I find the time, I will do them. I have not done every single side quest in Black Ops 4. Like, I do think that's a great feeling. And in Cold War, I've done everything. I've done literally everything that game has to offer, and I haven't even played it nearly as much as I played those other games. And to me, that's just not a good thing. I know a lot of people might see that as a positive because, oh, it was easier to do, therefore more people are going to get to see it. It's okay to have some secrets. It's okay to have some hidden stuff. We need to throw that in there. You can't do literally everything just for the majority of players. There need to be some things for those hardcore players who have been playing your franchise for 16 damn years. And something a lot of people forget about is that casuals might become hardcore players eventually, and if they do, they're gonna want more depth. If the mode just stays stagnant at the exact same amount of complexity all throughout, they're gonna get bored of it. It's as simple as that. Look what Zombies did originally. They started to expand on the mode, add stuff to it. And I know you can argue, oh, that's what killed Zombies, that's what made people play it less, but I don't think that's what made people play it less. What made people play it less is that the Zombies modes were in games that were being played less and less. The games themselves were getting less sales. It wasn't really Zombies' fault. And of course you had paid DLC and people just didn't feel like spending all that extra money on a bunch of DLC maps. So if you were to implement free DLC, you were to put them in games that just sold better, I don't think Zombies would have had such a falling off that it did. It wasn't a complete fall off. Black Ops 3 and 4 were still generally very popular, regardless of those games just not selling as well because of the game itself, whether it's the campaign or the multiplayer. It did create a large Zombies community. I would argue the Zombies community is one of the strongest and largest gaming communities out there that's very passionate about the franchise. Like, there's so many people who will constantly watch YouTube videos on it, talk about it, and that is important. A lot of people say, oh, we're the minority, we don't matter. We do, because we're probably the ones who are more likely to pay for a bunch of expensive bundles in these games going forward, and that's how they make a lot of their money. So I do think there being a lot of talk around the mode is important, and the more talk around the mode, the more conversations people have about it, the more likely other casuals are even going to play it in the first place, because they hear their friends talking about it, they hear, people talking about it online, whatever it may be. Most people, even casuals, are at least online. Maybe they're not talking about Call of Duty online, but they're more likely to come across people talking about it online, the more passionate and vocal the actual base community is itself. And again, you just don't have that without complexity. You don't have that without depth. Yes, Cold War Zombies did really well because Cold War did really well itself, but will those players stick around forever? I don't know. It really just depends, because something tells me the majority of the people playing Cold War Zombies were simply just playing to grind camos and grind their weapon levels for Warzone and multiplayer, and that's all they cared about. And guess what? You can make the mode as complex as you want. That's not going to turn them off. You can have a separate survival map or something like that, or a version of the map where it turns off any Easter eggs or something, and just let them grind their camos on those modes. Like, you don't have to just strip down the complexity of the full game in order to make those players happy. This does bring me to my next point about Easter eggs being very complex, but I do think the game needs to provide enough information to allow you to solve them with a bunch of hints. That might not be seen as an unpopular opinion to some people, but I've been seeing so many people online talking about how Easter eggs should be just like Cold War, where they're very easy and anyone could do them like really easily. I don't think they should be easy. Should I think anyone should be able to do them? Of course, but don't make them incredibly easy though. Have it be a challenge. You can have a challenging game while still making it accessible. That's very possible, and I feel like people just don't understand the nuance there. They think it has to be either the most difficult thing of all time that no one will be able to do except for like 1% of players or less, or it has to be something that literally anyone can do with, their eyes shut. You know what I mean? So definitely need to find a balance there. I think as long as you have the complexity there, just like Black Ops 3 and 4, and you just give the players enough hints to actually know what to do, then we're fine. Tell them what to do, just don't tell them how to do it. That's the important thing. This also kind of relates, but I think the setup process should be long on most maps. And I know a lot of people want to have everything right away. I understand that. I don't think they should be like too complex. Like, I think actually trying to solve, the Pack-a-Punch quest should be something that's relatively easy. But do I think it should be something you can do within 5 minutes in the match? No. And I've been talking about this recently with a lot of people because I'm just noticing a lot of people really, really, really want zombies to be something where you just jump in and just shoot zombies and that's it. And like I said, there should be modes and maps available that do just that. I'm completely fine with that. But Zombies has never been something where you jump in and get everything right away. It's always taken at least a little bit of time. And I don't think the Black Ops 3 and 4 maps take that much longer than the average map. A lot of people act like it's like blasphemy what they've done to Zombies, where it takes like hours to pack a punch. It really doesn't. Like, I can't think of a single map that takes longer than like 20 minutes. I think Transit's the one that takes me the longest personally. Dead of the Night maybe sometimes can take quite a while, but even then it's probably less than 15 to 10 minutes. I don't think it's that long. Like, people exaggerate the hell out of those quests. But there should be a lot of quests. There should be a lot of things you're able to do on the match. I love maps like Shadows of Evil, where there's a lot of things you have to do to get set up. That's cool. I like that. That makes the map more replayable to me because honestly, the setup process is the best part of a zombies experience. I think once you have everything and you're just walking around killing zombies, it's just not as fun because that's more repetitive. It's more of that running around in circles, killing zombies. And that's what everyone calls zombies boring for. They say zombies is boring because it's just running around in circles shooting zombies. And that's not what zombies is though. There is a lot more to some of the maps. But if you just want zombies to be, you know, get everything right away and kill zombies, then those people are right. Then they're right in their assumptions about how round-based really is, when that actually would be the case. And I don't think any map is really like that because, like I said, even back in the day, you still have to do a couple things to get what you want. But it's, you know, it's just some of the maps it kind of differs. But in general, I do think a long setup process is not ever a problem. I've never played a map and said, oh, it takes me too long to get to Pack-a-Punch. No, I don't care. As long as it's a fun process and I enjoy it, that's all that matters. I kind of mentioned this before, but some stuff should be locked behind a quest. Not everything should be handed to the player easily. This is a problem I've actually had with some of the recent zombies games, especially Cold War Zombies, where I feel like there's really nothing in the game that's like special to the player. You know, any reward you get for any side quest or Easter egg is something you can get just by naturally playing the game. Like you do a side quest and you get rewarded a perk, or you get rewarded a gun, like an elite weapon. These are all stuff I could just get by playing. I can just get enough points and buy the perk. I can just hit the box and get the weapon. Like I don't need to get rewarded these things. But you go back to like Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Infinite Warfare, World War 2, even Black Ops 2, there's a lot of side quests that reward you with things that you can't get in any other way. Whether it's an upgraded shield quest or some special like helmet, like for example, the Margwa mask on Shadows of Evil. You also have like the God mask on Revelations. There's even just like Easter egg rewards like Director's Cut in Infinite Warfare. There's a bunch of different side quests in Black Ops 4 that reward you with things like the Savage Impaler quest on Dead of the Night. Like these are secret stuff that you can only get through that quest. I think that's a good thing because it makes those quests a lot more special. Like even though there's not a lot of side quests on Cold War to begin with, even those side quests in the game themselves are still not really worth doing because the rewards are just not worth it. They're just not that good. And I know the argument people have against this, they say, oh, the devs made it. They want as many players as possible to be able to experience it. Like, I understand that. But let me look at like multiplayer, for example, right? There's tons of kill streaks that majority players will never get. The gunship, like a lot of the higher tier streaks within the recent multiplayer games, really any of the multiplayer games, most players are not going to get. And I think that's just how it works. That's how it becomes more rewarding. Those streaks are rewarding because most people are not going to get them. So when you do get them, it's like the best feeling in the world. I mean, even if you're a bad player and you eventually do get it, it's like such a magnificent feeling, which is one of the reasons people had a big problem with Cold War's multiplayer, because they did this whole new streak system just so casuals can have an easier chance at higher tier streaks. And to me, that's just not a good thing. Same thing for zombies. There needs to be some rewards that are very special and unique, and I don't think they should be like impossible to figure out on your own. You know, I don't think they should be, but they should still be locked behind something, some sort of quest, some sort of extra thing, some sort of reward that you have to get for doing something else, not something that you can just be given for free on the map anyways. And I think that's important. They should also take this a step further and have certain areas of the map being like locked behind a side quest. Now, they've done this before in some ways. For example, Dead of the Night, when they did the Savage Impaler quest, you actually do get a secret room unlocked with it. Now, of course, this room's kind of pointless to go in after you get the Savage Impaler because it's kind of a dead end. There's really nothing there. But imagine a map where you can like find some secret key and it opens up a secret room. Maybe you don't need this room for most of the map, but imagine something like that where you can explore a map and really discover new areas with new rewards. Maybe unlock certain rooms with puzzles. Think of something like Resident Evil 2. Like Resident Evil 2 is a really cool game because of that, because of the whole exploration of this map, unlocking new areas and everything like that. That could happen with zombies, and I think it should happen. And I know people would have a problem with it. They'd be like, oh, I don't want to have to do this every single game. But like, that's just kind of part of the process. That's what makes zombies fun, in my opinion, is just unlocking stuff, discovering new things, the map exploration, puzzles. Why aren't puzzles in zombies anymore? Also, too many part locations has really never been an issue in zombies for me. Now, it's been an issue when it comes to certain Easter egg steps, like for example, the different bird locations on Blood of the Dead. Like, okay, that's a problem. When there's like 40 plus locations, that's annoying. But when it comes to just general parts, like for buildables, like the shield, for example, or people always talk about Dead of the Night having too many part locations, those have really never been an issue. There's usually only 3 different locations for each part, and they randomize each game, and that's it. You can easily memorize those so quickly. You play the game a couple times, you'll probably memorize them. And even if you don't memorize them, you know that it has to spawn within that area. So as long as you know where, like what room that originally spawned in, just walk around the room a little bit and you'll find it. It's really not that hard to find these parts. People exaggerate the whole part thing so much, and it's like so funny to me. It's really not that difficult to find these parts, and most of them are not required to the player. Obviously, if you're doing the Easter egg, they are, but especially on something like Dead of the Night, all you really need is the shield and I guess silver bullets. But do you really need everything else? If you want to get the upgraded wonder weapon, then sure, now you do. But again, it's not that hard. This next one might just be my hottest take in this entire video, which is going to be that perk limits are better than no perk limit as long as the map has ways of earning more than 4 perks through a quest. And now, for example, a couple of the Black Ops 1 maps were like that. The best one, in my opinion, was Call of the Dead, where you can get more than 4 perks through killing George. Also, maps like Die Rise, Buried, Origins, Zetsubo, and a couple other maps throughout Zombies history have all let you get more than 4 perks through a quest. Not Gobblegums. I don't, if it's just Gobblegums, it's not, that doesn't really count. It has to be some sort of an in-game quest that anyone can do whenever. I prefer that over having no perk limit like in Cold War, because it's just a lot more rewarding to the player to, get your 4 perks that you chose yourself, and then you have to now do some extra stuff in order to get more. So when you eventually get all the perks in the game, it's like the most rewarding experience ever. Origins is a great example. Getting all the perks on Origins, you feel like a god, because you rarely get to have that experience. You're not frequently playing Origins with all the perks. So when you eventually do earn them through that really difficult quest in that game with the dig sites, it's like the best feeling ever. And a lot of the maps have that. So I do think it's important to do that. I just think these maps could have been a lot better if, with those included, free perk drops, they also gave you an extra perk slot. So let's say you go down, you don't have to try to get the perks again through the quest. You can just simply go buy the perks back, and it should be like that in all the maps. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So I do think I would love to see a perk limit return, as long as it's maybe like a 5 perk limit, and then it has a quest to let you get more than 5. I would prefer that over no perk limit. But if a map does not have a way to get more than 4 perks, like for example the Reisendrock, there is no way to get more than 4 perks unless you of course use Gobblegums, but like I said, that does not count. But for a map like that, then I would prefer no perk limit like in Cold War. So it really just depends on the map. But if they wanted to make a really good system in a future COD Zombies game, just bring back perk limits, but also bring back a lot of rewards for free perks, and then you make a pretty solid system, in my opinion. I also just made a video on this as well about perk upgrades being in-game versus out of the game like they were in Cold War, and my opinion, of course, was that the perk upgrades should be in-game, which at this point I would consider as probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm honestly not too sure, so let me know down in the comment section what you think about that. My next hot take is that most zombie fans dislike certain maps because they aren't good at it and blame the map for it. And just in general, people give up too quickly. They get frustrated really quickly. I've seen this firsthand so many times. I've played with a friend, or I've just watched someone playing a map for the first time, and they get so frustrated at just general mechanics that they don't understand, and then they give up and then they just hate on the map. And a lot of people do that, and they will never let themselves find time to learn the map. And I do think that's unfortunate. I think people should try the map a little bit more and try to, actually figure out how to be good at it. And then maybe they'll actually start to like it a little bit more, because naturally people have trouble enjoying things that they're bad at. It's as simple as that. And I don't mean to sound like an asshole at saying that, because I know a lot of people will deny that. But even myself, I experience that a lot. I do play maps sometimes and I'm like, I'm not doing good today, so I'm not really having fun. I try my best not to blame the map for it though, especially if it's not the map's fault. Sometimes it is the map's fault, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it definitely is, but a lot of times it's just not. I was just not playing great. I wasn't at my A game. It really wasn't anything the map was doing wrong necessarily. It's just I wasn't doing good. And I feel like I've seen that so many times. I know people probably would consider that an unpopular opinion because, like I said, nobody wants to admit when they're not doing good at a video game. Also, when it comes to looking up guides and tutorials for the maps, I've really never seen why people think that's such a big problem. Like, I understand from a gameplay perspective, it's definitely a problem. I've talked about this before in the video. I do think they should be solvable without a guide, but for especially like a hardcore player who plays zombies a lot, is it really that difficult to watch a 10-minute guide and then you probably will learn the map forever just from that one guide? Like, you really need to keep rewatching it to remember what the map is? I mean, unless you have a terrible memory, I don't know. I know some of the maps you really do need a cheat sheet for it because you're probably never going to memorize little things like that. For example, on Origins, the different code combinations for the ice staff upgrade, you're probably not going to memorize that. But is it really that difficult to pull it up? It takes 2 seconds to pull up Google Images. So people acting like it's the end of the world, the map automatically stinks because of that, I think they're exaggerating. I think they definitely they sound impatient. Like, just look it up. It takes 3 seconds. I'm telling you, 3 seconds. Another big thing that I've felt since the beginning of Zombies, to be honest, is that although storyline is important, it should never be the main factor in deciding what a map will be like. That should never be the main thing that the developers are thinking of. They should never be like, okay, we're going to go here because it makes sense for the story. We're going to add this because it makes sense for the story. It should always be gameplay first. And that's how it was back in the day. I will say that's how they started making these maps in the first place. They just had maps to do and they said, okay, how are we going to fit this into the story, right? That's what they did. It should be that same way today. And I don't feel like it really is. Sometimes it is, sure. But like, let's say they wanted to go to Atlantis. Let's say we wanted an Atlantis map in COD 2024 Zombies. You might be having a lot of people asking, well, how does it fit into the story? You can't just throw an Atlantis map in there. It doesn't fit into the story. I don't give a rat's ass. Find a way to stick into the story. Have the characters say, oh, there's a new incursion or something, some new outbreak in Atlantis. Like, I don't fucking care. Find a way to get the characters to go to Atlantis. That's all I want. I want to see unique locations, unique maps, whatever it may be. You have a multiverse. You know, I know they closed the multiverse, but they can open it back up. Who the fuck cares? You have time travel you can reintroduce. You have all these crazy things in this universe. Bring them back in, have some crazy shit go down, because that's what makes Zombies as fun as it is. Which goes into my next point, is that crazy stuff like dragons, giant spiders, multiverses, time travel, mythology, all this stuff needs to be back in Zombies. We need to have it more frequently, because that's when Zombies is at its best, when it's just batshit crazy balls to the walls, and I want more of that. I want some crazy locations. I want dinosaurs in Zombies. Like, I want all this crap. They need to get more unique with it, because just keeping it to be kind of grounded, not necessarily grounded, but in a sense, these recent games have felt a little bit more grounded. I don't want that anymore. No. Go crazy with it, or else it's going to get stale. And also, I want to see very different stories for each game, very different atmospheres, locations for every single game. And I honestly would prefer if they even just do completely separate universes like they did before. I don't need everything to be in the Dark Ether story, but I know they probably won't do that, but that's just why it's an unpopular opinion. I would prefer they did that, even though I know a lot of people kind of like it how it is. And last, but certainly not least, probably my most important unpopular opinion in this entire video that I'm just so passionate about, and I've argued this for so many years, and I really don't understand why so many people disagree with this, but round-based zombies should be in every single Zombies game, or every single Call of Duty game, period, not just Zombies game, and it should be made by a different studio each year, just like it was back in 2014 to 2019, and then open world zombies should be made free to play by another studio as an addition to Warzone. So this is something I've thought for the past couple years. I really think they need to go back to doing this. And I understand the reason why they stopped temporarily, because Infinity Ward apparently just didn't think zombies belonged in the Modern Warfare games, so that's why they didn't end up getting zombies in Modern Warfare 2018. A lot of people think they didn't do zombies that year because Black Ops 4 World War II IW Zombies wasn't doing that well, so that's why they thought they decided to skip a year, but that's not why. Apparently, coming straight from a prior Infinity Ward dev, Brian Bright, he literally said that the reason they didn't have zombies in that game was because Infinity Ward scrapped it. Whether it was Infinity Ward or Activision, I don't really know, but they said it just wasn't going to happen. The higher-ups did not want zombies in a Modern Warfare game. And then now, a couple years later, we have zombies in a Modern Warfare game. So we should have gotten zombies back then, but to take it a step further, not just zombies every year, but also round-based. It should have a traditional round-based mode every single year with new maps. I do not think that's too much to ask for. Just have each studio make their own zombies, though. I do not think it should be Treyarch every single year, because that's overworking Treyarch, so they're not able to spend as much time on their own game. Have Treyarch continue on their own game, and then have Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, whatever, Raven Software, even if they want to make a zombies experience, Beanox Studios, I don't care. For some reason, people have this weird thought process that Treyarch is the only studio capable of making zombies. I don't understand that. Like, of course, you can look at the non-Treyarch modes, and let's say you hate all three of them, which I personally don't. Obviously, I've talked about it in this video. I think Infinite Warfare and World War II are solid zombie modes. Advanced Warfare, not so much, but still, the other two I think are at least decent. I think, Infinite Warfare is incredible, but, World War II I think is just decent. But even if I thought all three of those were bad modes, it still wouldn't mean that I think they shouldn't have another chance at it, as for so many reasons. First of all, just because you make one bad game does not mean you're going to continuously make a bunch of bad games. So even if I thought those were bad games, that does not mean their next game and their next game and their next game is going to be bad and bad and bad. They can change their design philosophies over time. Even Treyarch has done that themselves. Black Ops 3 is very different than Black Ops 4 Zombies. They're very different modes. And then of course, Cold War is completely different. So obviously they're just changing each year. It's not the same game. Even you go look at Vanguard as well, that's made by Treyarch, but it's not anything like, Black Ops 3, for example. Like, they're just not alike. So you can make very different, different quality experiences, very different feeling experiences within the same studio. But even then, the studios are not the same anymore. They're not. Infinity Ward is not the same that they are now as they were back in 2016. Sledgehammer is not the same as they were back in 2017 as they are today. Neither is Raven, neither is Treyarch even. These studios are not the same. They have new devs coming in and out all the time. So there's new fresh faces, there's new visions that could come up with these new zombies experiences. And I want to see new visions put to zombies, especially round-based zombies. I would love to see that. And I would love very different feeling experiences as well, just like Infinite Warfare and World War II provided. That would be fucking incredible. I want to see that again, and unfortunately, so many people just having this prejudice against non-Treyarch zombies modes is what's making it harder for Activision to possibly do that in the future. And that would save everyone. That would help literally every type of player. If you're a Treyarch only zombies fan, that's all you care about is Treyarch zombies, you're still winning here, because guess what? Treyarch is going to make better zombies modes because they're going to have more time to focus on it, and they don't have to worry about a bunch of other zombie modes coming out in between then. If you're a fan of non-Treyarch zombies, you're obviously going to be happy because you're going to have non-Treyarch zombies modes. And if you're not a fan of zombies at all, it doesn't affect you. Now, of course, they would just have to get separate zombies teams from Sledgehammer and Infinity Ward, and I think that's certainly possible. You just have to find people that are passionate enough to want to do that, or maybe take some of the Treyarch zombies devs and put them over to the other studios to try to, give people some influence. And I really don't think there's some secret formula to creating a good zombies mode. And you know how I know that? Look at custom zombies. Look at custom zombies. These are random people around the world who are designing really great maps. If random people around the world can design really great maps, then that means developers who have worked their life off with developing video games, they can make good zombies too. They can. They just, they have to be given the chance to do it. You know what I mean? They have to give them the actual fucking chance. I hope this happens eventually. I hope we do eventually get to see zombies made by other studios, because I'm tired of it being Treyarch every single year. We're losing that vision that these other studios could possibly bring to the table. And Infinity Ward Zombies from Infinite Warfare was a really unique vision. So was World War II Zombies. We need to see more of that. Even if you don't like it, you can't lie that it's not really cool to get to see these other visions. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to respond to every single one of my hot takes, go for it. If you want to respond to just some of them, go for that as well. I will see you guys in the next one. If you'd like to see this exact video, but for multiplayer, let me know. Peace out.